And we continue learning Dirshu Mishnah Bura, middle of Hilchais Netilas Yadaim, Siman Kuf Samoch Beis. We pick it up from Sif Beis. Says the Mechaber Netilas Yadaim, one who washes his hands. Shoifech Aleim Ksas Meravias. You initially pour in them a little bit from the Ravias. Why? Lahasir Mehem, to remove from them Halichloch, the filth, the dirt. B'chol davar shechayitzit, anything that could potentially create a chatzitza. And then, you pour in your hands a second time. And finally, after so many shiurim, so many halachas, Netilas Yadaim, finally, the Mechaber, the halacha, is going to teach us the process. So says the Mechaber, you pour a little bit of water to get rid of the grime. Then you pour a second time. And these second waters that you just poured, him tameim, are as well tame. And then you pour in your hands a third time. Why? To be mitayer, to purify the water that is on your hands. But let's say when you started washing your hands were clean, then you pour on both hands one full revius bivas achas at one time, ve'ein tzarich mayim shniyim, and you do not need any secondary waters. You don't need to pour a second time. You don't need anything else. All you do, one big revius. Says the Ramah, and the same thing is true. If you have a lot of water, what should you do? Wash a little bit, so your hands are clean. Then pour one revius on me, and then you don't need these third waters. It concludes the Ramah. You got to rub them one another. So the halacha that we're learning over here is, first, you got to get rid of the lichloch. Number one, he's got to get rid of any grime, any filth, any item that potentially could be a chatzitza. Then, what do? Then you pour on a second time to get rid of whatever was there, and then a third time. But now, if your hands are clean, all you got to do is one big revius. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkotin Yadayim Ksas Meravias. The first time, the Shir Netilas Yadaim, because what is the Shir Netilas Yadaim? Loi Pachais Meravias Mayim L'Shtei Yadav. Is that less than one revius of water for both hands? The Shaifech Aisa, that you pour onto it, Al Shtei Yadav, on your two hands, Kachas at once. Or each hand by itself. Miksas al achas and miksas al shniya. A little bit on one, a little bit on the second. Vor lavasim kufsam sif yud gimel. V'ema yadam b'lochlachas ksas. V'en lo rak revius misumsum. Let's say your hands are a little bit dirty, but all you have is a revius. So we're learning now that the minimal amount to wash is a revius, and we remind ourselves how we already learned that the cup itself has to hold the revius, or else it doesn't have a din of a cup, and it's not going to work. But now we're learning that the minimal amount you have to pour in your hands is a revius. Now let's not get so nervous. Revius is anywhere between 3 and 6 ounces, not that much water. A washing cup is, 12, 15 ounces usually, maybe even more. So if you have exactly revius, you should take a little bit from him, mikaydem, to remove any lichlutz. Question is, wait, if I take a little bit of water and I use it to wash my hands, and now I'm using less than a revius, says the Mishnah Berurah, that little bit, we don't have to be concerned with. It's all for the process of tahira, ayin bir halacha. Sivkatan yod ches. So the first pouring is why? To remove the lichloch. If you have any tit, you have any refuse, or anything else on your hands, because he's saying that's not a chatitz, you don't have to remove it, as we have learned extensively. We'll just reference Ramesha Feinstein's ink splotched hands as the reminder for what exactly we are referring to. And we continue with Sif Katan Yud Tes. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Heim Tameim. Those first waters are Tamei, Netilas Yadaim, as we learn. Netilas Yadaim, one who washes his hands are Lishvach Shtei Pamim Al Yadav. You have to pour 2 times. Hainu. Av Kashem Nekim, even though they are clean, B'loi Lechloch. Why do you have to pour 2 times? The first pour purifies your hands. However, the water on your hands, those waters are tamei, that they become tamei by touching your hands. And then the second waters, make them pure. And that completes the process. So again, the first pouring for your hands really works fine. I apologize, we're having some delay issues over here. Let's just get rid of the video for a moment. The first pouring makes your hands tar. But the problem is that the water that's left in your hands is tamei. So you pour a second time to purify that water. Umiyu. However, continues the Mishnah Berurah, the Beis Yosef writes, says we only say that the water on your hands is tamei if you did not pour a revius all at once on both hands. Pour it at one time at a time. Mix al zu, a little bit on each. When you split the revius in half, or you're lacking from the revius to remove the lechluch canals we've seen. Then you have to pour 2 times. Aval, as everyone is probably wondering, what do you mean? Maybe if I pour a full revius? As we mentioned, the revius is only 3 to 6 ounces. I'll pour a full revius. Again, just to keep in our mind, that's like 1 plastic cup full is already 8 ounces. So your washing cup is a lot more than that. So certainly I'll call achas revius. I pour on each hand a full revius. Ein sarech lamayim shneim l'taran. You do not need to do anything else. Ein kan mayim tamei m'chamei. Because then there's no tamei water. Now whether one should and can do this, which sounds like everything is great, sounds like what do you have to do, and this is something that we've referenced in the past and now we get to see it together. It sounds like what do you have to do is you just take 1 full revius and you pour it on each hand and you're done. You pour this 1 time. We'll see in a moment. Shlishas Latar Sefkat Chav says Mishnah Berurah Ve'im Nikraim Shniyim Be'etzem Netilah. It's really the second one of the Netilah. It's the third in total. The first time you're pouring is not for the actual washing. Just to remove the filth chanal. V'da says the Mishnah Berurah. You should know. Achas, that which the Mechaber said all 3 times could be 1 revius. It's only if the water surrounds your entire hand. Al kel panim, b'shtei pamim, at least 2 times. Important, because if you're not using that much water, you can run into an issue. You have to make sure that the water covers your entire hand. Revius v'asachas sefkatul chaval fatam. What's the reason the revius v'achasas asur kemikva? What is the reason that if you pour a full revius, that we're seeing that the halacha is that the water left on your hands is not tamei, and all you would have to do is 1 big revius on each hand. Is why? Because the revius is considered a mikvah. The rule of the mikvah, as we've seen, is if you dip your hands in a mikvah, not only does it purify your hands, but the remnant water that's left over does not leave over any toma. Everything is tar. So you don't need to pour any more water on top of that. If your hands are dirty, you have to remove the dirt. You don't have a full revius, then for sure you're going to need to pour a second time because you don't have a full revius left over. And you should know. And this is really, everyone is wondering that, what do you mean? We always use revius. Yeah, most people wash more than once. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Yeshayim, over here he's quoting the Ravid, the Rashba. It's mashed a little bit this way in the Goin. That what? You always need to pour 2 times. The main rak revius, if you only have 1 revius, you should pour it from it 2 times. Even if you pour a full revius, still you always need a second pouring. Even though, as Mishmur just explained, it seemingly breaks all the rules. Because as we just explained, there's really no reason for the second pouring once you have a full revius. But still, the Ish Aimim, the Raiva, the Rashba, a little bit Mashma and the Goin, that you always need a second time. And says the Chai Adam, which we know often has created the Minhagim in Klal Yisrael, definitely if you're a European Jewry, because of a Chai Adam, the Yesh Linoikin, this is what you should do. Litzor Revius al Kol Yad, V'gam Shnim, you should pour Revius and pour a second time. It's only if you have enough water. To go and look for this near Adain Tzarech, you don't need to. Lenient, as we've seen in the Shulchan Aruch itself, in a moment we'll see the latter modern day Paiskim, what they say, Dirshu will quote in a second. And if you look a little bit more than the Revius, Shlema. Sarach l'shav shem yikukudi. You should rub your hands together. Sivkat chav gimbal. Hainu afilu not of yisakol yad yad. Even if you use a full revius in each hand. Chayna matzal yadaim. And similarly, if you dip your hands, you still should rub them afterwards. Zu bezu sivkat chav dalid. Nirshuk de lahaver alichlach. Hativ to make sure your hands are perfectly clean. Furak lechatchila lo leikuva va'ayin bibach. So before we call it a day, let's take a moment to look at the Dirshu note number 14. That what is lemaisa? Lamaisa, when one is using a full revius, does he have to wash 2 times or does 1 time suffice? Says, I apologize that the video is having issues. Says Dirshu number 14, the Chazon Ish writes, one is allowed lechatchila to wash 1 revius 1 time. And that's all you need. You don't have to pour a second time. And that's how the Chazon Ish himself would do. Archas Rabbeinu, that he would wash 1 time from revius on each hand, and he would not use a second pouring. However, the stipler, which is definitely interesting, that usually the Chazon Ish and the stipler do the same thing. However, the stipler is not like the Chai Adam, that he would wash 2 hands, and al kol revius, he would still use mayim shniyim. Lamaisa, Dirshu number 15 continues that when you wash 1 time, says the Chazon Ish, you don't have to be ledaktek lishvach benachas, pour slowly. Rashi lishvach is kol revius azachas, you can pour it all at 1 time. He brings that the Rambam says you should pour slowly, and he adds on the reason the Rambam is because that cleans better. Okay, not something you have to be particular about. Sivkat Dirshu number 16 says, what are we referencing in Siman Kuf Samach Aleph? This is something else. And finally, why are you rubbing your hands? Dirshu number 17. Zaman Sheba Yishav Shev Yada, he comes to the Magen Avram and he says, you should wash it after the first pouring, you should rub your hands together. The Graz says you should pour revius, then rub your hands. Then you're not able to be mishafish your hands because it's so tamei, then you do it after the second time. Whereas the Graz in his siddur adds on that the reason that you're rubbing your hands together is for extra taira. And he adds on, that's the reason why it's a chelik of the netila, and you make the bracha koidem hashivshav. This is where it gets complicated on the bracha, and therefore the bracha will be over l'asiyasa mitzvah. This is a big sugi that we're going to have to get to. We already saw in Siman Kuf Nun Ches, the Mishmura says to make the bracha before the drying. Over here, the Graz is adding on that you should do the rubbing of your hands first. And the Graz adds on that the reason is then the bracha is going to be considered over l'asiyasa because this is a chelik of the washing, as the rubbing is to remove some of the filth from your hands. So if you finish washing, you make the bracha and then you rub your hands together. It's considered that the bracha at some level was over l'asiyasa. And of course, we conclude over the Kaf Chayim brings V'Shem the Arizal. Lamaisi, you should always wash 3 times. This is Al-Pi Kabbalah, and then rub your hands together. And this is what definitely many Hasidim do, due to the indifference to the Arizal. We will just add on, again, Shrusin Mishtabura seemingly is leaning towards the Chai Adam. You always should pour it 2 times. The Chazon Ish says you're Lamais allowed to pour 1 time. We'll just add on that practically, sometimes when you see someone pouring 2-3 times, and they're not pouring a full revius, you see that their full hand isn't getting wet, and we saw that could be a very big problem. So rather, it's more important to make sure your full hand is wet. And Lamaisa, if you pour a full revius at once in each hand, you'll see, take the whole washing cup in one hand, the whole washing cup in the next hand, you'll see that that's really, you'll get the whole hand wet, which is most important. And either way is perfectly fine. We'll pick it up from Sif Gimel, B'siyata Dishmaya.